Hello everyone, I'm Tyler Rosado, and this is the DIVA Checkpoint. This is your go-to stop for bold insights, big vision, and real action from leaders across Circle K International. Each episode, my guests and I unpack what's happening, what's next, and how we're showing up to lead, with plenty of fun and maybe a little drama along the way. Without further ado, let's get into it. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the DIVA Checkpoint podcast season 2. This is actually the last episode of season 2, and it's a bittersweet moment, of course, but I'm so excited to celebrate the end of another amazing season of this podcast, which I could not do without each of our terrific guests. So thank you to everyone who has been on the podcast, whether for a full episode or for some of our mini interviews. You all have shaped this podcast into what it is today, and I cannot thank you enough. And I want to thank each of our listeners for taking the time out of your day to listen to these episodes, gain some insights, and everyone who shares this podcast with people who they think might be interested in it. The more we continue to spread the word about CKI and all the amazing things we do, the more impact we can have. And of course, today's episode is very special because my district administrator Jennifer Hethcox is back, but this time she is the host asking me some questions. So it's a really exciting opportunity. I thank you all again for listening and for another great season. And who knows, maybe I'll be back soon for season 3. But otherwise, I want to thank you all again for listening, and let's hop right into it.
Well, welcome to the DIVA podcast. We are flipping roles today, and I am District Administrator Jennifer Hethcox, and I'm going to serve as the host. And I get to interview the DIVA podcast host, Tyler Rosado. So, welcome to the DIVA podcast on the other side.
Well, thank you. I must say, even though I'm sitting in the same chair, it still feels like a whole different position. But I'm excited to answer some of your questions.
Well, we are going to put you in the hot seat today. So I'm excited to get some of the questions that you've been sharing and asking your guests these 2 seasons. So with this being the last episode, we're going to wrap things up, and I'm super excited to have the opportunity to interview you this time. So maybe let's just start with kind of like getting to know you on the Kiwanis family side. You've been in the Kiwanis family for quite some time now. So give us just your general background of, how it all got started.
Yeah, well, this is my 7th year in the K family. And it all started back in 2019 when I was a freshman in high school, and I joined my high school Key Club. And so I've been a part of the organization ever since. I initially had joined the Key Club because it was a club that I'd seen some signs for, heard about. The high schoolers, when I was in middle school at the time, came to my middle school to talk to us about potentially joining Key Club, which I thought was so interesting. Like, it wasn't part of any bigger like fair
Mhm.
at the middle school. It was specifically like these high schoolers came and they just wanted to talk about Key Club. So it caught my eye, and then I remember my mom telling me like, "Oh, I remember there being a Key Club in my high school days," and I was like, "Okay, this sounds legit. Let me at least check it out." And I was instantly kind of captivated by the amount of people that were there. It was at the time, competing to be, and I think eventually the biggest club at my high school. And my high school had like 2,300 students, so quite a big club. I think at our peak, we had like 300 members. And so as soon as I kind of entered the space, I just saw so many different people and knew that I could find my groove in the club. And then very early on, they introduced the idea of an officer position for freshman members. Of course, when I was starting in the fall, they'd already elected all their officers for the year, but they
Right.
specifically held a freshman representative position. And so, of course, I was like, sure, I will go for it. It was definitely something where I had applied to certain like leadership positions before, maybe back in middle school, but wasn't really sure. And I ended up winning that election, and then went on to serve on the board all 4 years of high school. And so, of course, when I got to college, not being in Key Club, I immediately was like, all right, I gotta find the CKI people. I gotta find the Circle K people and keep going. And so when I went to the club fair, my first week of freshman year of college, looked for the CKI folks, found them there. NC State CKI was tabling. I think someone from East Carolina CKI was there too visiting. Like it was just
That's
great
awesome.
because then I was like, all right, round two, here we go. We're gonna keep going.
Yeah.
And then they had a kind of freshman representative position as
Mhm.
well, the freshman ambassador position, which was started here in the Carolinas, and so I applied for it and got that, and then the rest is kind of history. At the end of that year, it was brought to my attention that we needed someone to run for president, so I threw my hat in the ring then, and then later on during my president term, folks approached me about running for district
Mhm.
governor, and it all kind of feels like a blur, but I was basically like, you know what? Sure, I will step up to the challenge, and here I am.
That's amazing. Well, I want to come back to the president to governor role because that parallels even my own experience of going from being club president straight into the governor role. But I want to circle back to just the opportunities that you got in terms of um, the Key Club members going to the middle school and then you also having, I guess, learned about Circle K during your Key Club time and moving into that. So, what was it about? I know you said your mom was in Key Club, but what was it about the whole experience? Maybe it's your leadership experience that just kept you driving through and wanting those leadership positions in Key Club and then on into Circle K.
Yeah, I think what was really standing out to me is that our Key Club was so rooted in our high school community. And so in the leadership positions that we had, it didn't just feel like you were trying to shape your club, but it really felt like you were having a say in the entire campus as a whole. And I thought that was really exciting. And I don't think that that is necessarily unique to our specific Key Club. I think that's part of what happens with our clubs, whether it's a Key Club or a Circle K or even a Kiwanis Club, where
Mhm.
because of the community service component, you have to be present in the community. And so I just thought that that was so interesting compared to any other giver random club, just
Mhm.
where the officer position means serving the club, serving as a recording the meeting minutes
Mhm.
or deciding what event they're going to have or what the club meeting is going to look like. All of those things happen in the Key Club, but then also decisions about, how are we going to present ourselves in the town of Apex Christmas parade, and how are we going to present ourselves at the schools like Mixer for all the different organizations. And it just always felt like Key Club was part of the backbone of our community in the school. And so that showed me that no matter where I am, whether it's at the Key Club or then when I went on to college, that we can make those positions more than just club roles, but really community roles and as an extra way to give back.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. And then before we leave Key Club world and move into Circle K, I know that you have Key Clubbers that listen to your podcast all across the United States and even probably globally. So we had one reach out, I think recently, just to ask, like, how do you move from Key Club into CKI, and what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I would definitely say the first step is to put the feelers out, put yourself out there, right? Like, of course, the NC State CKI folks were out tabling, ready to welcome people with open arms, but I had to also bring myself to that tabling event and, tell myself like I'm looking for CKI. And of course, for some of our Key Clubbers, depending on where they end up, different schools, they may not find the CKI when they first get there. And I think it's important to recognize that you really have to be motivated by the passion and the love for service that got you into Key Club in order to then seek out CKI.
Mhm.
There are so many different opportunities on a college campus to do X amount of things. If you're just seeking an executive role or an officer position or just seeking something for your resume, there are 100 different things that could fill that box. But
Mhm.
to really be committed to service and to the community, that is something that can help drive you to, kind of swallow the embarrassment or nervousness that you're having navigating your campus for the first time and say, I'm looking for the Circle K Club or I'm looking to
Yeah.
start the Circle K Club.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Just taking that leap of faith and I think too, knowing that CKI is not exactly like Key Club, that we have a lot of similarities. We have a lot of same positions, the structure is the same, the love of service and the love of leadership is definitely the same. But a CKI club feels a little different than a Key Club. I know as a CKI member, you all are empowered to run your clubs and have a lot more autonomy on what goes on, what projects you do. And so I think that really speaks to your leadership that you exhibited by just jumping in there and trying that freshman role, whether it was Key Club or CKI, and then making the club really strong and grow. So I know you mentioned that you moved from being a club president to the district governor. So, what was maybe a defining moment that you realized you were ready to step into that district leadership position?
Yeah, I really, of course, understood going into even considering the position that it was going to be there was going to be a learning curve, right? It's a theoretically a new environment with newer people that like I had technically met pretty much everyone who had served on the board and everyone that would most likely be continuing to pursue board positions. I'd met you, I'd met Miss Dawn, like so it was not as much of unfamiliar, but just I knew that there's deeper layers to everything, right? So the district board to a general member or even to a club officer looks different than those who are actually serving. And so, but at the same time, I think what helped me realize that I was ready to step into that role is that I have done that before coming into CKI.
Mhm.
As you mentioned, CKI clubs are different than the key clubs, even though a lot of the things are the same. The way they kind of operate, it evolves to be different. And at the same time, I realized that while I've never served on a district board, I have made a transition from one thing to another thing that feels similar but also different. And so, kind
Mhm.
of just recognizing that attempting a challenge or making a change or transitioning into a new position, it doesn't necessarily have to be daunting just because it's something new. Obviously there's going to be new things to overcome, but at the same time acknowledging that we all kind of adapt to new things all the time and just kind
Mhm.
of like recognizing that, reflecting on that, and saying that I know I can be capable of navigating those challenges as they arise.
Yeah. And I think, one thing that really impressed me when we first met and kind of got to know each other was your vision. And, you had a solid vision as to what you wanted and where you wanted the district to be. You had an energy. I wouldn't say that necessarily it was like a high energy, not like a hyper energy, but it was a focused energy. And there was a lot of moxie and verve behind it. I mean, you just really were like, I know where I want to take us. I know what I want to implement. But I think that also speaks to your background as an English educator. You're wanting to go into education, and I think teachers at the heart of it. They have a vision for what they want their students to learn, and all of that. So can you bridge that gap for us? Can you tell us, like, how do you use the skills that you have learned as an educator to Circle K, and to how you're going to run your high school classroom, to how that connects to with how you're running the district?
Yeah, I mean, I think that notion about having focus is something that I hear from a lot of folks, especially when I interact with them about CKI things and even outside of our K family spaces. And I think that really comes from a balance of confidence and trust. Um, Confidence in my own abilities. As I mentioned, that, I kind of had to rationalize in my own head. I've navigated challenges before, so I can navigate this challenge even if it's new to me. And that was something where I just had to be confident in that ability. So being able to be confident in the classroom is a skill that I've been developing throughout this role and my time in the organization, just knowing what my strengths are and also knowing what your weaknesses are, but at least also being empowered in your strengths at the same time. Because sometimes I think that can even be overlooked. We always talk about knowing your weaknesses, being able to develop them, and reflecting and growing, but acknowledge that you have strengths too.
Right.
That's really important. And then also trust in others. In the education space, we only have so much time with any given student or any group of students. And so there's kind of a trust component that you have to rely on that. The teachers who had these students before me have tried their best. The teachers that will come after me for these students will try their best. All the other moving parts in a school are doing their best. And all I can really do is apply my strengths and my skills in this moment and trust that everyone else is doing their part. And of course, part of that does look like working together in different things and the same way that in our boards we work together. But it also involves trust and trusting that if I have this vision and if I'm focused, I know that other people can operate in a similar manner.
Yeah. And one of the skills that I really appreciate having worked with you is how you inspire people. Like you have a specific vision and you know where you want to take them. I think that's going to be replicated in your classroom because you meet the students where they are, whether it's your board members, and I'm sure it's going to be the same in your classroom. You meet them where they are, and then you tell them, all right, this is where we're going, and we're going to work together and we're going to make this happen. And I've seen that change with our board members that we have this year. And you're there and you're supporting them, but you're also like, here's where we're going. So I need you to do your work and let's get there. And then, if you need to pivot or motivate or do whatever, you're right there thinking about that. So I think that's something that is a skill that you have innate, inside you, but you've really refined it and utilized it both as the governor role, and then I'm sure it's going to be in the classroom when you get there. So that'll be super awesome. Now, one other thing that we've talked about just kind of on our weekly calls, kind of here and there, is just your passion about fighting for educational equality and just better public school funding. This I was a K-12 public school person. I went through all my years in public school. I'm a public school teacher. I think this is my 17th year. And I know that's something similar for you as well. So tell us, how do you use that passion of fighting for educational equality and better public school? And then, how do you empower that in your Circle K members who maybe want to advocate for change, or just, want to make a difference? Because that's really what Circle K is about.
Right. Well, I think it kind of goes back to that idea of focus, right? Like, I think there's something we can see in the world that we would like to change for the better, I think, across the board, even if what I see as something I would like to change is different than what you see, is what another person sees, and etc. And so when it comes to public education, that is something that I love. I've gone K through 12, entirely public education. And even in my higher education, I'm at a public four-year land grant university. And of course, the passion I hold for that is similar to the passion I hold for our clubs, in that when you have this public institution, it is open and welcoming to diverse groups of people.
Mhm.
And I can safely say that the best part of my public education experience, whether it was K-12 or higher ed, has been the diversity of people that I've met, different walks of life, different experiences, the opportunity to see windows into other people's lives, and also mirrors that reflect my own life and the things that I can relate to. And
Mhm.
so trying to identify kind of the why behind the passion is important to empower members to find what their thing is that they want to change in the world. And usually there is something that you can do to kind of turn the needle on that, right? I think as an organization, we have so much impact and change when at the end of the day, that is the result of 100 tiny different actions to, get things done. And so having the opportunity to serve in these clubs, and then also work together to support each other's visions and support each other's causes is really where you can kind of be empowered to say that I can make a change to policy about the environment or healthcare, or whatever it is that is your calling.
Yeah, I totally agree. I remember being teased when I was in college, and I was doing a summer internship, and I was telling one of the guys that I was working with all about Circle K and all the work that I was doing, and he just made this like kind of snarky remark, like, "Well, you're just one person. Do you really believe that you can make a difference?" And I just looked at him square in the eye, and I was like, "Yeah, I do. I do think I can make a difference." And um, you know, I mean, obviously I didn't solve, world hunger or, any of that. But I mean, I think that passion is so important for our leaders. And, that's one thing that I really appreciate about Circle K in terms of, it is the change maker within the Kiwanis family. I mean, we were the first to, have women in part of our organization. We were the first to have people of color in our organization and to lead our organization years before any of the other branches. And um, sometimes, we're a little bit of the rebel rouser, but I think that's what makes our branch so unique because we're bridging that. I'm at home with mom and dad and kind of in that safe bubble to, I'm not, fully out in the world yet, but I'm in this like time where I can develop my voice and find my voice. And I think that's what is really unique about CKI and that's one thing I love about working with all of you all is that you do keep me like thinking and even though I'm in the public education space, like I'm constantly being pushed as to what, what is the next like area that I need to focus on to make a difference. And so that's just hands down is one of the most favorite things. So
Yeah, and
um,
I'd love
oh,
to just add on to that too, because I know I've also had experiences with some naysayers that are like, why do you put so much energy into
mhm.
CCAT? Or why have you, are you being paid? Are you like, what's the,
I get that
what's,
all the time. Well, this is your paid job. No, this is my volunteer job.
yeah. And so I really think to the naysayers, because I think sometimes there's this idea that like, why do you think you can change the world because
Mm,
you're not special?
right.
And I don't want to live in a world where only some sort of special person can save the world. I'm doing this
Mhm.
because guess what? I'm just the average, you know, kid who grew up, went to public school, is going to 4-year college, and I feel like I can make a difference. And guess what? I don't want that to be special. I want anybody to be out there and say that from wherever I came from, I can make a difference too, because then we live in a world where it's not some special rarity. It's not some one in a million trait that there's going to be some one in a million person to come save us. We
Mhm.
all are empowered to make the changes we want to see. We're all empowered to do that. And it's like, why wouldn't you want to live in a world where we're all capable of doing that?
Yes, yes. Can we get that on a bumper sticker and like get it out there? Okay. Oh, that's amazing. Um, so I want to switch back to your home club. The NC State Club is well known across our district for hosting this amazing haunted house for Boys and Girls Club in Raleigh there. So tell us a little bit about organizing this and maybe even like give some tips. I know one of the key clubs we sponsor here in South Carolina for our club, they have gotten into doing a haunted house. And so it seems like it might be something that's replicatable. And just kind of talk us through like what does it all entail and if we want to replicate it, what could we do?
Yeah, well, I think the main thing that is maybe a misconception about our haunted house is that it's a fundraiser. And
Mm,
while I totally understand the need for fundraising, we have plenty fundraisers. And if someone wanted to do a haunted house to fundraise, I would be, right behind them, rallying the troops.
hmm
I think it's also important to remember that service can look like providing experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the root of our haunted house is the fact that for many folks that those listening, sitting at home, have maybe never thought about this,
Mm-hmm.
but for some folks, a like traditional Halloween experience of dressing up and going outside of your house, just like taking a walk around your neighborhood, and going to different houses, knocking on doors, that's not necessarily available to
Mm-hmm.
every population of people or to every group of kids. And so that is kind of the point of our haunted house, is to say, well, we have a safe location. It's partnered with the Boys and Girls Club of Raleigh, so students are constantly at this location anyway. Families know where it is. No one is concerned as like, where are my kids at this hour? Like, they're
Mm-hmm.
just coming to have like a fun, spooky experience, get candy, because every child deserves to have fond Halloween memories, even if it's
Mm-hmm.
not the traditional walking around the neighborhood, going door to door. And so that has really been, I think, what drives a lot of the passion for all of our members kind of behind it, since we are from day one, the conceptual idea comes from our club, and then everything trickles down from there to costumes, to set design, to scare actors. And so it's kind of important to align yourself in that vision if you're interested in doing a project like this. That, if it is for, say, a fundraising purpose and you're going to charge tickets at the door, that's one thing. But
Mm-hmm.
I think if you're really looking to procure an experience for folks, to be aligned in that and to talk to your members about it. I've kind of broken it down before. Like, I think it's easy to say like, oh, we're providing an experience to the needy, or we're providing experience to
Mm-hmm.
underserved communities. Those are some like underserved communities we throw around a lot, I think,
Yeah.
in our organization. But to really like peel that back and say, well, let's think about it. There are communities right here in our own backyard in Raleigh where, for whatever reason, whether it's municipal or state level or even federal level, like, no one's paying to have the streetlights put in or to take care
Mm-hmm.
of cracks in the road. And like, these infrastructure things are like real situations that no, our club cannot go and pay for new streetlights, or no, we cannot pave a new road, but we can provide these experiences to students to then empower them to be advocates in their community and to, grow up into the people that will advocate and fight for those around them who came up in those conditions. So really trying to emphasize, I know sometimes the pushback would be, well, we could be doing something like providing bags for students where it's like physical items, so which is
Mm-hmm.
another project that we do. But it's
Right.
important to understand that an experience and a memory can last a lifetime, and really exponentially grow the amount of service that your club is doing.
Yeah. That's such a powerful thought about it, because a lot of people just see it as, "Oh, this is a great opportunity. You're working with the Boys and Girls Club." I mean, most people know the Boys and Girls Club and what the services they provide, and they're a great organization, just to have a fun evening. But what that really trickles down to say, and how you're really serving the community and meeting a need again for people that maybe don't have those opportunities. And I love the experience part, because that's that also harkens back to our educator background. So that's great. Um, so, as a fellow podcaster, I am just curious to hear, what really inspired you to create a podcast. We both kind of launched our podcast at the same time. Like, we weren't really talking about podcasting, but then, like, I think I mentioned to you one time on a call, and I was like, "Oh, I'm starting a podcast." You're like, "I'm going to do a podcast," and I was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing! We're doing a podcast together." So, obviously mine's for work, but yours is here with the Diva Checkpoint. But tell us, like, where did that inspiration come from to create your podcast?
Well, I have in the past experimented with podcasting as like a creative hobby. And so, I have done sort of bootleg podcasting before where it's like recording on a phone. I don't think it's still out there on the internet. I should hope not. But there was even a podcast I did like in my middle school days where
Oh
like
my gosh.
I was talking into a phone, and like my friend was FaceTimed in, and that was just like we were just recording the call. So there's always been kind of this interest in podcasting, and
Mhm.
I really think that creative outlets are really great to explore, especially for educators, because
Mhm.
we're trying to connect with students. And so I'm always trying to explore different things. And I think Key Club and CKI and everything Kiwanis related has given me opportunities to experiment in those places.
Hmm.
And so I knew going into this that this would be the perfect time to experiment with the idea of a CKI podcast. And then it was actually at governor training in Indianapolis where I really
Hmm.
solidified that that was something I was going to do. It was always an idea in the back of the mind and I knew it would probably be impactful. But then, having conversations with others, really trying to reiterate that when we support the entire organization, it helps our districts and everyone else's district as well. And
Hmm.
we kind of talked about this notion. I brought up this notion that, I want my other district governors to do well because it helps me do my job. When there are people in California, Nevada, Hawaii district in high school Key Club hearing about CKI, but then they come over
Right.
here to Chapel Hill or Elon. That helps me. That helps me say I have a foot in the door with those students. And so the same thing goes if I have high school students in this district that I'm promoting to and they go to a different district. And so I knew I wanted to do something that kind of fed into that idea that it can benefit everybody. It's not just for the Carolinas district, even if it's
Hmm.
housed here. And so talking with people, that was really the idea. And also the concept that, we're looking to increase our membership. We're always looking for new innovative ideas. And I really just thought about the fact that we're always looking for ways to innovate and we should always be looking in kind of new spaces. I
Hmm.
hadn't really seen many exemplars of a kind of CKI podcast at all. To my knowledge, we have not had a CKI podcast done by
Hmm.
anyone officially or unofficially or anything.
Yeah.
And so I knew that we kind of are at a point in our organization where we should leave no stone unturned, right? Like, let's get a podcast going. And if it fails, it fails. If it gets one new member recruited that wouldn't have joined otherwise, I call that a success. I think we've gone a little bit beyond that and we've had reach across, to different districts. And as you mentioned, a Key Club are even reaching out. So it's definitely reaching folks. And I would say it's been a success in that way.
Amazing. Well, what is one of your most favorite memories from recording the podcast?
I think my favorite memories are all related to some of the more fun things that we talk about on the
Hmm.
podcast. Because I think when I had made the decision that I was going to do this podcast, I knew that I did not want it to just come off like a presentation or a workshop
Hmm.
or like a slideshow where it's just like, all right, here's today's guest, here's their 5 tips for your club, and you get out of here. Like, I wanted to create items that would, even if you were unfamiliar with our organization, you didn't know what we were talking about, you don't know what decon is or what fall call is or any of that, you could at least tell that we were people having fun. And so any moment where we're having a laugh, especially I always try to include some sort of just like fun game or challenge with folks based on their own interests. I think one of my favorite moments of this was my conversation with Governor Taylor from Georgia, talking about Beyonce of all things, just like
Yes.
something we both shared. But then at the same time, flipping it around and saying, like, this is a fun topic, but we can still kind of relate it back to why we're in CKI. We had a great conversation about Beyonce's music and her albums and how they relate to this kind of idea of the American dream or American identity. And then it flipped around into this idea about how CKI fulfills us and our idea of what it means to be American. And it's like, those things don't just happen when you make a slideshow about CKI and present it just like kind of flat on a Zoom call or something. Like,
Mhm.
those are the moments that can only really happen when you invite someone to having a conversation with you that you just happen to be recording to post in a podcast.
Yeah, yeah. Those were so like as I listen to all of your podcasts, and I always look forward. Like I know that last season they dropped on a Thursday, I think, and so I was like eagerly waiting. And I usually listened to it as I was driving home, either Thursday afternoon or driving to work on Friday morning. So I was always waiting. And those moments of, I think Maddie's was Hunger Games. Was that her favorite movie? And you had her like relate characters in the movie to like a Circle K board or something like that. So all of those moments were really fun because I know all of the people that you've interviewed, and to see that other side of them that is not necessarily the Circle K side, but like their personal side was just, I don't know, it's magical. I loved it. It was so fun. It was one of my favorite parts of listening to the podcast. So I'm going to turn the table on you. And given that we're both educators, I'm going to do a little fun twist here. So, if you were going to build your Circle K board out of all the different educator types, so I'm thinking like, English teachers have a certain personality, history teachers, you could do principals. I mean, like, however you want to, I mean, most people have gone through K-12 probably that are listening or close to it. So they kind of have this like stereotypical one. Like who would you put in what places like on a Circle K board? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, of course, as an English person, I have to think about where I'd place myself. And I mean, even though I have the most experience doing like maybe more the president role or, like in this governor role. But I would honestly say like the typical English teacher, myself included, really belongs in like the social media chair slash like editor role.
Hmm.
Because I will always claim to be a Canva warrior. Like, if you need me to put together something, I can do it in like 10 minutes, give me 15 and it'll look pretty. Like,
Right.
so I can just do that on the fly. I'm the type of person that my slides are always, have a theme and they have like little GIFs and things and
Yes.
like trying to be visually appealing because I just think that that's like a fun way to reach people. So I feel
Right.
like the English teacher has to be on that front. If we're talking about kind of our secretary, definitely some sort of social studies teacher. Specifically, I would say probably some sort of like AP European history, like social studies teacher, if I have to
Yes.
get really specific, like one that has like a very like special interest. I think like a social studies teacher with a specific interest, like they are very dedicated to the task when you give it to them, and I feel like they would be very good at having like these are our meeting minutes. They are done to
Hmm.
a T. I have everything written down, who seconded, who first the motion, all those things, all the parliamentary procedures
Right.
they would have those things down. And then I would even say that our for a president, I would actually, this might be a little controversial, and I definitely
Hmm.
don't say this as a dig at any principals, but I would actually put an assistant principal as kind of our club president because where the typical like principal would be definitely like leading the charge and is almost a little bit more authoritarian just because they
Hmm.
have to be. I think
Hmm.
assistant principal is in that good middle ground where they are, enacting the vision, but also like then also being the leader in certain
Hmm.
situations. So I think that is a good club president because, you are the leader of the club, but at the same time, your job is to support your members. And I think an
Hmm.
assistant principal would do really good at that.
Yeah, yeah. I think you probably, well, one, I would say you saying about your slides, I don't want anybody out there to think that English high school teachers um, don't have the capability and they don't love putting together great slides in Canva because my office mate is a former English teacher and she is the one in our office that is always putting together stuff. I always figured it was like elementary teachers because that's where I come from, the background, because we're always like cute stuff and GIFs and all of the little things and the music in the background. But I'm gonna tell you what. English high school teachers, they are right there beside us, putting together all these great slides. And so I think that's great. And then I would throw like your English, like your elementary teacher. They could be your rah-rah chair, whether it's social media or your con chair, because they got the energy, especially those kindergarten teachers. I don't know if you spent any time in kindergarten class before, but let me tell you, they need extra pay because they got they got a lot of energy, and it amazes me every time I'm in there. Okay, well, to wrap up our podcast, since this is the Diva Checkpoint, and you have asked every one of us what our Diva moment is, we want to know what your biggest Diva moment has been with your time in the Kiwanis family.
I think so. My diva moment will be kind of this two-parter around the idea of the number six, because the number six has come to have a lot of meaning for my K family journey. So, as I mentioned, I ran for president, or well, I did run for president of the Key Club, but before that, I ran for freshman representative of the Key Club. And the person who I ran against for that position was the president of our middle school student body government. And I had
Oh,
applied for that position as well. And I had lost it out to her on some technicality because it wasn't an election, but I think like I filled out something wrong on my form. And so they had to give it to her. And so, it was no hard feelings, but then going into it, I was like, great, I'm running for this new thing. I'm trying to like be different in high school. And it's the same girl I'm running against. But, you know, we did our speeches. I remember this is a diva moment in and of itself is that I stayed up till like midnight that night writing a speech the night before. And then moment of, I kind of just dropped my speech and spoke like just what was on my mind at the moment.
yeah.
And then I won the election by 6 votes.
Whoa.
So, and we had, of course, it was only freshman members voting, but we had, of course, like 50 something freshmen interested in joining the club at the time. So it came down to like 6 votes. So fast forward, of course, that position led me through all sorts of different positions in Key Club, and then I get to Circle K. And when it was time to run for president, there was kind of this moment where it didn't seem like anyone was going to run, and this is why someone outside of the board had reached out to me. And I've written about this. This was Kate Hotting, the current Circle K president at NC State. She had reached out to me and was like, you need to run for president. Like, you need to do it. And of course, I think the board was putting in their own plans of who would take over. And so the person who ran against me for that, she had even kind of approached me as like, oh, well, I'm going to run for president now. So would you like to put your name down for just something different? Like, and we not have to like do a whole election, which of course to me, I was like, no, I'm going to do an election. If
No.
someone asked me to run for president, I'm going to run
Yes.
for president. And I was like, I'm not going to put my name on anything else. I'm running for president. And the election came down to this was at a time where our club was, I think, kind of shrinking from some like lack of leadership in the past. I'll just say that. And so we only had 12 people show up to our election that year. And the vote was a 6-6 split between the two of us. And the reason the tiebreaker was she had put her name down for another position, whereas I had not. And so the sitting club president, I like to say was his like best decision for the club's longevity, was that he said, well, since you've put down 2 positions and he only put down 1 position, he'll be the president and you can be that other position. And then the rest is history. And it's a fun story to kind of say, and it was definitely a diva moment where I'm like, no, I'm still going to run. But it also, I think, brings a good point to folks that are potentially interested in running for something. Be confident in running for something. It's okay if someone reaches out to you and suggests that you should run and you're inspired by that to run. I also think it's okay that if you really, you know yourself best. And if someone reaches out to you and asks you to run, I think in that scenario, my opponent for club president was probably reached out to by the rest of the board and was maybe not as into it, but just felt like they had to. And I would say it's definitely a balance where like, yourself. If you feel like it's meant for you, it's meant for you. If you feel like it's not, it's okay to also say like someone else will take on the responsibility. But at the same time, still feel empowered to keep supporting your club. I think that is really the biggest takeaway from that diva moment. But still funny stories to look back on now.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and I do love some good competition. I love that. So that's great. That's awesome. Well, it's been lovely serving as your host today. I thank you for switching roles and being in the hot seat. And it's been great talking to you.
Thank you so much for doing this interview with me.
Yes, great.
Thanks for tuning in to the Diva Checkpoint podcast with me, Tyler Rosado. For more episodes, be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. And hey, if you've got something to say, we want you to be a guest on our show. Head over to bit.ly/CKI podcast for more information. Until next time, keep leading loud, CKI.